Yeah, and I know it's been all butterflies and rainbows so far from me about life in big law. So I'll qualify it with this: like the first few months, six to 8 months that I was at Shook, I was drowning. I had no idea what I was doing, and it was certainly it was a struggle. I mean, I
Yeah,
went into therapy and all that jazz to kind of just get me grounded and centered. But so there is that possibility for that to happen.
sure.
You have to take ownership and navigate that path yourself into connecting with the right mentors and colleagues and whatnot to kind of pull you out of the water, which happened for me about a year into Shook.
Hello and welcome to Breaking the Law podcast. We're so glad you're here. If this is your first time listening, you've picked a good one because I'm really stoked about it. And if you have listened to other episodes, then you already know what we're about here. But at Breaking the Law podcast, our main goal is to talk about how we think that the traditional approach to law is broken, and sometimes it leads to breaking people. And so we want to talk about and focus on the concept of what better law might look like. So my name is Ashlyn Lindskog. I am an attorney and so stoked for you all to join us today. And I will briefly ask my co-host to introduce himself so that we can get to talking to our guest today, which I'm obviously very stoked about. Sam, take it away.
Hey, I'm Sam Foreman. I'm lucky to be the co-host here. I don't know how I made the cut, but I'm glad I'm here. I'm a lawyer, M&A and business law, founder of Foreman Law. The best part of my life right now is I have two kids. I've got a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old. My 2-year-old is going through potty training right now. So we appreciate everyone's thoughts and prayers. He
Mm-hmm.
is sometimes potty training himself, and sometimes we are potty training him. And the struggle
Yeah.
is real. And our 6-year-old is learning how to read. And this is just a wonderful season in life.
Yeah, I love that. Yes. Okay. And Sam's kids are amazing and adorable. And I love that you point out what you do, but also the best thing in your life right now. I think that's such a cool way to open, Sam. So thanks for sharing and always being willing to tell us about your family. They're so fun. Bill, welcome everyone. This is Bill Wahlberg. He is a dear friend of mine. Went to law school together, although we didn't know it when we went to law school together because I don't know where Bill was for the 3 years in law school that he was apparently there with me. But we met at the bar exam. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
I think we
after?
did.
Yeah.
Half the
So,
room was crying, and I was just sitting there eating lunch.
right. Everyone was sad, and Bill and I were like, this is uncomfortable. Hey. And then he was like, I was like, oh, what law school do you go to? And he was like, hey, you. And I was like, are you sure? And then Bill and I both moved to Wichita together at the same time. He went to work for a law firm, while I went to work for a law firm here. And my husband left town to go to physical therapy school. So Bill and I got to hang out a lot, and he had to help me move furniture and fill like a very important role in my life under a protest. So that is the background of Bill and I, but Bill is no longer in Wichita. He left me here. So Bill, tell us the best part of your life right now, and then tell us about what you do, where you're at.
Yeah. I would have to say, gosh, best part of my life right now is anxiety is at an all-time low.
Mm,
Got a great relationship, um, and great career, doing great things with the community. So really no complaints at this point. Uh,
amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Podcast over. Bill's killing it.
That's a wrap, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you for tuning in.
Okay, Bill, tell us about what you do. Where are you? What do you do? How do you do it?
yeah. I'm a senior associate at law firm called Shook and Bacon. We were a big firm, and now we're a large firm. We're approaching 600 attorneys nationwide, with a small office in London. So we technically are international. But I focus my practice on product liability defense, working mass tort cases, MDLs. So all that fun and jazzy material. Lots of motion practice, lots of depositions. And then in my free time,
Sam, in the litigation world, those are things you write. Motions, those are things you write, Sam.
Oh, thank you. I was completely not lost.
Depositions are where you ask people questions on the record.
yeah,
Sam, I think you heard him. He does and is brilliant. Does M&A work and doesn't do the litigation side
I
of
have
things. So I like
no
to give him a hard
desire
time.
to do litigation. You talked about how anxiety is at an all-time low for you. Anxiety for me becomes an all-time high anytime I'm involved in anything dispute related. But
the
no,
litigation is not the place for you.
no, it's like I am really comfortable and confident in my zone of expertise over here, and that's where I want to stay. But
Sorry, Bill, I interrupted you to
my,
make fun of Sam. Go ahead.
I was just going to say my ADHD would preclude me from doing M&A practice because there's no way in hell I would be able to stare at the document all day and make edits, which is what I assume you do, but I have no clue.
Sometimes it's like that. My favorite aspect of M&A work, though, is the human element. We really get to know people really well, and you get a chance to see how interpersonal dynamics form and shape the process, and how to understand how to, help people get to a good result in spite of the challenges that they might face through relationships and lack of predictability there. I think if all I had to do all day, every day was, stare at the screen and edit documents, I would be miserable because I thrive when I'm getting a chance to connect with people, and really grateful to have a practice area that allows me to do a mixture of that while also doing some very technical work. So
it sounds like you could also be equipped for litigation, so that could always be on the table for you.
I think
it's a backup plan.
I think my childhood demonstrated an argumentative streak, one might suggest. And that's probably why people encouraged me, as they do with many young children, to see themselves as a lawyer in the future. And that probably had something to do with it for sure. But yeah, enough about me. Bill, I'm really curious, what led to your decision to, so you started your career in Wichita, at a great local firm here, and then started to identify that, hey, there's something else that's missing that I really want. Was it from the firm experience side of things, or was it, hey, I need to be part of a different kind of community? What sort of led to that change for you?
Yeah. So Ashlyn knows this. I'm not sure if you know this, but I am one of the many proud gay attorneys in Kansas City.
Great.
And
Wait, you're gay?
I know, right? Isn't that's a wild concept?
Do I need to give you guys a moment to reconnect and?
Yeah, we could always talk about our trips to the Rain Bar, or what's right. That XY?
Yeah.
The other
one. Sorry. Anyway, yeah, Bill's gay. Got it. Next.
Yeah. Key point there. It wasn't that Wichita was exclusionary to the community, but there wasn't a lot that Wichita could offer me on that side on that front, as much as I tried, as far as the dating scene and getting involved with local LGBT organizations. So I the best I could down in Wichita, and just hightailed it up to Kansas City to the first job that I could find, which was not where I'm at right now. It was a smaller boutique firm on the western side of the Kansas City metro. And loved Kansas City, loved the community, and definitely saw myself wanting to stay there, although not at the firm that I was at, because I did have at one point I had an attorney, older attorney. The firm that I worked at was, I think, had 12 to 15 attorneys, and I had one senior attorney. I think he will not give any descriptions.
This undisclosed gendered person. Yes.
Yes. came into my office and closed the door after she found out I was gay and made the just cracks me up. I was in shock at the time, but the crude statement that I found out you're gay, but it's okay because there's other people in this office with a disability. And so at that point, I was just like,
Oh my
okay,
gosh.
we're going
Mm.
to reanalyze our situation. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
by the
And I'm
grace of
sorry you
God,
went through that.
oh, it's fine. The other
Wow.
attorneys just found out and they panicked and they
We're
were
gonna
worried.
get sued.
Well,
This attorney was just stuck in their ways.
yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you went through that. I mean, you're very gracious in your response and your description of it, but I mean, I don't think that's something that anyone should say, and certainly hope that fewer and fewer people actually feel that way, whether they choose to express that to anyone or not. I mean, it seems obvious, from your description, but that it seems like, like you said, caused you to reevaluate, like, hey, do I even want to be at this firm anymore?
yeah,
Um,
that was exactly it. And by the grace of God, a dear
mhm,
friend of Ashlyn and I is Mary Olson, and I were who's an attorney now partner at my firm,
mhm.
uh, was assisting me with an appellate brief to the Kansas Court of Appeals and alerted me that there was a position open up in the product liability department over at Shook Hardy and Bacon. And by, I think it was within a week, I was hired at Shook, and um, that was it with and I've been at Shook since I think December of 2018. So
Well, that's great.
yeah,
When you were deciding, when you were like, okay, I can't stay here, like I can't even be that's obviously not going to work. And you were like, okay, there's an option at Shook. What was there a part of you? I mean, because you were sort of at mid law before in Wichita. That's why, I mean, it's not big law like you're in now, but a larger firm. And then went to a little bit of a smaller firm, right, in Kansas City. Was going to big law like in your brain? Were you like, man, I've heard about the big law thing, or were you like totally like, this is the dream. Like this is exactly how I saw this going.
yeah, it definitely was a dream, and I mean, it was confirmed when I went through the gauntlet of interviews that I had to go through, where I think I
Yeah.
with met with 12 or 14 attorneys in the span of 5 hours, and but learned about all the opportunities to grow in litigation as well as the support that's provided to mid-level associates, actually all associates. And I was just like, yeah, we'll give it a shot. Plus, Mary Olson's just an amazing human being and one of the smartest people I've ever met. And Mary, if you listen to this podcast, I love you so much.
Oh,
If the firm had Mary's stamp of approval, it's definitely a good place to work.
interesting. So it was definitely one of those situations where you're like, okay, well, I know you and I know your values and I know who you are and what you would want to experience in your workplace. And if you were telling me this is a good place, then I believe that, which I think is says a lot for one, Mary and her having that capacity, but two, what a reputation of a law firm and what it's like to work for a law firm, how important that is on recruiting lawyers, talented lawyers for sure. Because I
Yeah,
would say that they're lucky to have you, not vice versa. But so okay, so then you go into big law and you're like, here I am. I'm a fancy products lawyer now doing fancy products law. And what was that? Did it? I guess I have a million questions, but um one of the first is that do you think that the law firm that you're at has a traditional law type of approach? I mean, and by that I mean, here's your billable hour requirement, here's your expectations, here's your partner track, do whatever, just these are our expectations of you. You got to eat, sleep, and breathe, you got to grind, and then one day you too is literally blowing my leaves right outside my window. One day you too can have the beautiful corner office. Like, does it feel that way? Is it very traditional, or what are we talking about?
yeah, it's very traditional, and this is so cliche. It's all big firms in Kansas City say this, but it's a big firm with a Midwestern flair to it.
Okay.
And that's evident through the close relationships I've developed with the other associates and the partners. Um, and we're a very unique firm in the fact that, at least, especially in my department, we go to trial all the time. So I travel. I've been to Massachusetts, Florida, New Mexico for 2 to 5 week trials, and it's such a unique experience where I'm able to bond with the associates and the partners and the professional staff, and that then when we get back to the office for our day to day work, we just have that unique relationship where we were down in the trenches together and worked insane hours at trial,
Mm-hmm.
but that it broke down barriers where I feel comfortable talking to most of the partners that I work for. If I ever have questions about projects, or more importantly, questions about partnership track, um, how to resolve any issues that I'm seeing with either myself or with the firm in general. So,
Well, and you mentioned a topic that we hear often when people are observing some challenges about the traditional model is the crazy number of hours that can sometimes be involved in working in big law. But I think you've identified that sometimes there's an element of that that can create some direct value from an experience standpoint. That not only are you getting quality experience as an attorney, but you're building those relationships that you might not otherwise have. Am I tracking with that correctly?
yeah, you are definitely tracking with that.
Yeah. If there weren't those intense periods where you're going on those, working on those trials for multiple weeks with those crazy hours, do you think you'd have the same level and depth of relationships with folks at your firm?
I don't know. I haven't really dove into those conversations with folks
Sure.
that don't go to trial that often.
Sure.
And there's not a ton of
Hmm.
Department.
practice groups. Yeah.
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 And a theme that Ashlyn and I have seen pop up a couple of times when folks have talked about positive experiences that they've had with big law or with traditional law firm models. They've talked about the quality of the relationships that they have in sort of their immediate practice group. And it seems like that's been your experience as well, is that there's some of these really quality relationships. When you look at your firm, do you feel like, and we talk a lot about on this show about culture and the importance that it plays in the experience that's created for attorneys, for clients, but when you look at your firm, do you feel like there's microcultures within the firm as a whole, like, hey, our practice group has a particular set of an ecosystem of relationships, if you will, and then the firm as a whole does, and that kind of thing? Or does it feel more like there's just sort of one ubiquitous culture across the firm?
No, there's definitely microcultures. I can tell you right now that the products group loves to party. So
Sounds like a
we,
fun bunch.
it certainly is a fun bunch. We work hard and we play hard. And then there's some other groups that are more on the tame side.
Mhm. They're
And
probably
He says
boring
tame,
business
he means
attorneys.
boring. I was gonna say he means boring for
I
sure.
don't mean boring.
Uh-huh.
Everybody has a different perspective on life.
Hmm.
They can value being boring, and I can value not being boring. It's okay.
Does
uh,
does the and I certainly understand, and even in my own experience, the product side of the practice of law is a high, like, complex, very skilled, very litigious area of law that does require a significant level of work. And it's in an area of law that it's almost impossible to move away from the billable hour model in any meaningful way, because there is no way to predict truly the cost of one of those litigation matter. I mean, from start to finish, it's hard. We talk about alternative billing models and different ways to sort of relieve stress and relieve pressures, but your area of law is one of those that I think is really would struggle having alternative sort of practice that's not just a billable hour requirement or something like that.
Right. I mean, with some of our historic clients, we were able to forecast hours and whatnot. So we've got some predictability there.
Okay.
But with newer clients, yeah, it's completely up in the air.
Does it feel, especially because everybody has different things at different seasons of their life, and like the season of my life is taking care of young children while taking care of ailing parents at the same time, which is interesting and presents its own problems and difficulties. But tell me about, like, I mean, obviously in your practice group, there are seasoned lawyers with, I would assume, families and things and community involvement. What is your experience, or what do you see as it relates to their ability to do both well? Or does the firm say, you know, take the time you need, or what have you witnessed or experienced as it relates to sort of offering that level of like balance? I guess I hate that word, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, and I've got one specific example that speaks to this, and I can go into this topic more generally. But back to our dear friend Mary Olson, I was at
Mhm.
trial with her in Massachusetts in the fall of 2022, and it was either the day before or 2 days before closing arguments, which is normally anywhere from a 15 to 24-hour day. And
Mhm.
she received news that uh, she received test results for her dog that showed that her dog had an aggressive form of cancer. And she had
Mhm.
just lost her dog, her last dog, a few months prior to that. She was
Oh.
extremely distraught. And I honestly haven't seen her like that before or since. And the dog's doing fine now, by the way. But the
Spoiler alert.
I know, but the trial counsel was just like, go, and they put her on a plane, and she flew home to go take care of her
Mm.
dog.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow. Wow.
That's incredible.
I mean, that seems like such a humane thing to do. Also something that shouldn't surprise us, I would say, but does often. Do you feel like you've seen that kind of behavior at other, large law firms that you've encountered?
uh, no, I can tell you that the firms that we work
Mm,
with as co-counsel,
hmm.
they tend to be, I'm not going to name names, but they tend to be the churn and burn
Mm,
uh, types of firms.
right.
Again, that comes back to Shook being a large law firm with a Midwestern flair,
Hmm.
And when you say churn and burn type of law firm, what is that? What do you think? How would you define that?
where they just want you to bill hours.
Churn the file.
Yeah,
Hmm.
Yep.
bill
On you.
hours.
So we
Don't
don't
care
expect
if
you to
you're
make partner here. We just want you to get the work done. And if you burn out 6 months to 2 years in, that's what we expect. So
exactly. Whereas at my firm, when they hire you as an associate, they expect you to make partner.
I love
So
that.
yeah.
Yeah. No, that's great. Um, Bill, you've mentioned a couple of times here, and I want to dive into this a little bit more. That you feel like you're really thriving. And I think it seems like, if I'm observing correctly, that part of thriving on a personal level is the broader community that you're a part of. There in Kansas City, and having that great level of personal connection, but then also that the work that you're doing and the environment that you're in, really harmonizes with things that are important to you, and that there have been really good quality relationships around you. um, when you think about what it means for you to thrive personally in the environment that you're in, can you talk about that subject a little bit more broadly? Help people understand who are listening. Hey, here's the things that were really important to me. Here's what I followed through on. Here's what I'm experiencing. Here's what I've done to really be intentional to make sure that your experience is so much different than what a lot of people experience in big law.
Yeah. In starting with that, I mean, the obviously the LGBT community It's very important to me. I do a lot of volunteer work, where I'm now finishing up my second year as board president of a nonprofit housing organization that focuses on uh, individuals living with HIV, drug abuse, alcohol abuse, mental health issues. And we provide housing to around 2,000 people in the Kansas City metro. And my firm has always had my back. They constantly donate to the organization. They support all the events that we put on, and they've recognized my work with this organization at firm events before, and not only outside of the firm but within the firm, they promote and support the LGBT community. I mean, right off the bat, our chair is gay, Madeline McDonough. She's a superstar. She's what we call a power lesbian, may or may uh, but but we consistently score 100% on the HRC index, which is a human rights campaign. I assist Mary, back to Mary Olson, assist Mary with this clinic called pro bono clinic called Project Affirmation, where we handle name and gender marker changes for trans and non-binary adults and children on both the Kansas and Missouri side. So we've made significant strides since I've been at the firm to really broaden our definition of diversity and DEI work and whatnot. And they've been really making a push to uplift the minority groups within our firm, such as this Leadership Academy, where there's, I think, 10 of us associates from diverse backgrounds, where we're partnered with members of the executive committee or senior partners, where they provide mentoring for about 16 months and make sure that we're involved in understanding the inner workings of the firm, making sure that we're getting the appropriate exposure to business development. My mentor is taking me to the National In-House Council conference in Nashville in October, along with another executive committee member. So they really want you to, my firm really makes sure that we all feel comfortable, that we feel supported, because they know if we're comfortable and feel supported, we're going to kick butt with our work product in the long term.
That's a go ahead, Ashlyn.
Oh, I was just going to say, it sounds like they figured out the thing that, we talk about a lot, which is anymore, we can't motivate production and performance, at least for a lot of people, through fear. And that the way that you get the most productive, happy people are going to perform better. They're going to give more. They're going to be less resentful about the time that they spend giving and performing. And it sounds like, in your experience, at least where you are at, that they've started to figure that out. Where, frankly, in a variety of other conversations, and probably your experience too with other peers in Kansas City at big law firms, has not been the case as far as I've heard. I mean, this industry is tough to move forward as it relates to, it was hard when I did it. It can be hard when you do it. And so, well, I don't want to do the hard part. So Sorry you did, but I don't want to.
Yeah, and in addition to receiving recognition, I think my products group is ranked in the top 3 practice groups in the country years in a row. We consistently rank high with or are awarded diversity awards from both our clients and national legal organizations as well. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, and we're kicking butt in pro bono too, as well. We have a partner dedicated to running the pro bono department. So we're
terrific.
Hitting the ground hard on that front as well.
No, that's fantastic. One thing I want to dive into just a little bit deeper is It sounds like part of what has, or let me ask it as a question rather than make statements, which is what I do all the time. Um, does it feel like when you look at the different experiences you've had in your legal career, that part of what makes this particular position that you're in right now, this particular firm that you're at, a place where you can thrive is that it's a place where you have the opportunity to be yourself?
No, 1,000%.
Yeah. Do you
1,000.
Awesome. Do you feel like, because I feel like that's consistent with what we've seen, where, traditional model doesn't work for people and where we've seen it work for people, is that um, I think a consistent theme, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, Ashlyn, is that where it doesn't work well is where people are in a culture or a model that doesn't allow them to really act on those personal priorities that they have. And that where it does work well, whether it's in traditional law, big law, or something else, is where people have made the decisions to really understand who they are, what matters most to them, and then select a setting that allows them to optimize around that.
Hmm. Yeah, I think if anything, and having these conversations with people who are thriving or have thrived in this environment, sort of the traditional law environment, which again, I think Bill's experience in the products liability group, at least, is what we talk about in terms of like the traditional approach to law, but is that they are confident, sort of self-reflecting types of people who have the ability to know who they are and then set boundaries around what their expectations are. So, like, in Bill's example, which I think is powerful, is that he was at a smaller firm and had a conversation that was intolerable to him, not in a way that he was going to like flip tables. I mean, maybe you wanted to flip a table, I would, Bill,
That's close.
but that he said, that's not a value that aligns with me. I can't just look past that one thing. I'm not going to, and I'm going to find an experience that aligns with my values. And it sounds like you have been able to do that, and I think in my perspective, and Bill, I want you to correct me if I'm wrong because you work there and I don't. It's almost like you have to be the type of person who can do that, who can say, this is who I am, this is what my expectations are, and this is what I'm willing to give. Whereas some people are less confrontational or less confident in their ability to set boundaries in their lives. And so maybe that's not an environment that they thrive as well in. Does that make sense?
No, that totally makes sense. And yeah, I'm able to set boundaries up to a certain point. And I mean, it's the ebbs and flows of the practice. I mean, sometimes the work is just so intense that there's really no way for me to set boundaries unless there's a family or fur child emergency.
Right.
But for the most part, yes. And then one other thing I wanted to comment on that I love about my big law experience is the way that the partners treat the professional staff is
Oh.
something incredible. That's something that I also did not care for at the previous place that I worked. Is that for the most part, the professional staff feel respected and treated appropriately, and feel like they're treated as team members instead of folks that are on the lower rung, the totem pole.
Yeah.
No, that's
What a cool point.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a great point. That's a great observation. Do you feel like this is um, I mean, it would seem like, is this probably something that's pretty widespread culturally within your whole firm, or is it unique to your practice area?
For sure, my practice area, I
Sure.
would say probably 80% of my firm.
Okay.
I mean,
That's
firm
really
of,
good.
That's a really
yeah,
good percentage.
right. I mean,
It's a solid B. Yeah.
Yeah.
for a firm that's close to 600 attorneys, they do a pretty
Yeah.
darn good job.
I
No,
mean, statistically,
that's
you're going to have an
fantastic.
asshole or two, you
Yeah.
just are.
Yeah. When you look at, the other firms that you interact with, you've mentioned you interact with the churn and burn type firms, but, especially when you look at other traditional law firms, especially larger law firms, do you feel like, this is a common culture and cultural experience, or is this Is this more the exception for folks?
You know, I don't know if I can really comment on that just because
Sure.
I don't think I've had those conversations with those associates that I work with at other firms. But when I'm at trial with those other associates, they certainly don't bring those topics up with me.
Mm,
Um,
Right.
so I'm not sure if they have those experiences or if they're not comfortable sharing them with me.
gotcha.
Well, I have a question too. And
Another
it's
question?
part, I have all the questions. That's the point of this, Bill, is that for me to ask questions and for you to answer them and Sam to look pretty. That's
And
what we're here
do.
for.
I actually have a question. Are we taking an advertisement break for Alani? Is that why that's out?
Yeah,
But we're trying to
we're
get them to sponsor us.
right, right. Alani, if you're listening, please sponsor us. We will
Just a,
accept your opening offer in anything with seven figures or above, or
mm-hmm,
probably honestly below. Yeah,
or just product is fine.
yeah, more
Um,
product.
um, but okay, so I didn't work. I mean, I worked in what we call mid law, right? I was a partner at that kind of. But I talk a lot about how like I truly think that law firms engage in like a significant level of groupthink to keep even unhappy people in the law firm, so that you don't want to leave or whatever. It's all this game and in any industry probably. But one of the things that we told ourselves, or when people would be like, "Well, I'm gonna go look at." Name one big law firm, Hush or Shook or whatever, and I know I'm getting a job offer from them, and we'd always be like, if you want to like have no life, and sure you can make a lot of money, but they will, rip your soul out and make you less of a human. I mean, that's what we, those of us who are experiencing at firms that are maybe smaller can't pay as much, right? So we're finding a way to say, well, yeah, but our culture's better than theirs. And from what I'm hearing you describe, like that was at least at your firm in your experience, a lie we were telling ourselves. Not that you're not working hard. I think you probably are working very hard. But that you don't hate it. Like you doesn't feel like your soul's being removed from your body. It sounds like you're working hard because you like what you're doing and who you're doing it with.
Yeah, and I know it's been all butterflies and rainbows so far from me about life in big law. So I'll qualify it with this. Like the first few months, 6 to 8 months that I was at Shook, I was drowning. I had no idea what I was doing, and it was certainly it was a struggle. I mean, I
Yeah.
went into therapy and all that jazz to kind of just get me grounded and centered. But so there is that possibility for that to happen.
Sure.
You have to take ownership and navigate that path yourself into connecting with the right mentors and colleagues and whatnot to kind of pull you out of the water, which happened for me about a year into Shook.
Was that like a personal pressures you were putting on yourself that created that, or was it sort of a mixture of both, just an introduction into the style, the culture of the firm, plus not having necessarily like the coping mechanisms and the skills to carry that level of stress?
It was certainly a mixture of both. I mean,
Yeah.
I had not partaken in this litigation before and didn't really understand the expectations, didn't know the right questions to ask, and thought I
It's like a
could.
learning curve, like a substantive learning curve too.
Yes. And I mean, this seems minor, but the two firms I worked for before could have given two shits about. Am I allowed to say that? Sorry.
Yes.
Sure.
About
Yeah.
Blue
Nope.
Book.
You're gone.
Well, it's been
Give
great.
a hoot about what?
Blue Book. And
Oh.
then, so I hadn't touched the Blue Book in like 3 years.
Mhm.
And then Shook's all about the Blue Book. And I was just like, okay, well, we're going to go back to square one and relearn
Mhm.
stuff. And that was a struggle in and of itself. But
Oh yeah. If
now I'm
Westlaw's copy and paste is not citing that thing right, you are on your own. Don't know what to tell
I don't
you. Don't
know.
know.
I don't know how much Westlaw needs to pay Blue Book to get get that on there, but I wish they would. But I'm
Oh,
a blue book whiz, so that's
oh, I
Good.
don't know any. I know how to spell blue book.
that's
We'll
that's
include your email in the show notes so that people who have Blue Book questions can reach out.
Bill's
perfect.
actually going to
We
start
won't do
tutoring
that.
lawyers
We
on
won't do
Blue
that.
Book, so for free. So you're welcome.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think I appreciate the vulnerability. It's hard to be vulnerable. I say this
Mm,
all the time. Sam's heard me say it all the time. It's incredibly impactful and meaningful for lawyers, even in big law or in any scenario, in-house, solo, whatever, especially male lawyers, to acknowledge that this is a hard thing to do. It requires a significant level of time, attention, and detail, no matter where you're at, and that you have to take care of your brain, you have to take care of your heart, and you have to prioritize the ability to cope with whatever scenario you're in. So tell me, like, um, I have two questions, two more. I have 17 billion more, but ones I really want to get to. And then I don't know if Sam has any, but we're going to run out of time. Sorry, Sam. One, I want you to tell me, like one juicy, like this thing about Big Law is true. Like here, are all the rumors or the myths or the, all of this stuff. Like, is it all is your experience that it's just all very different? Because you went into Big Law with like your eyes wide open. You were like, I know all these rumors about Big Law and I'm in. Like, I want to. Was it like they were like going to write you a big fat check and you're like, yes, I'm in? Or like, what was it that drew you there? And like, what did you feel like? Oh wait, this isn't what everyone said it was. Like, it's better. Does that question make sense?
Yeah, yeah. I'll give you two rumors about Big Law that are true. One, the
Okay.
patient is significantly better. I can tell you, guarantee you that.
Okay.
Um,
So,
yeah,
check.
right. I passed the number that I had in my head that I wished I would be making in my life when I retire. I passed that.
Amazing. Good for you.
So
that's great.
we're thriving there. They take good care of us. The second rumor that's true is you're going to work a lot of nights. You're going to work a lot of weekends, and that's just the nature of the practice. I can't
Yeah.
tell you how many times, no matter how much I try to control the controllables, people will get me shit. Mostly co-counsel, not people from that I work for, get me stuff Friday afternoon, and we need to file something on Monday, so I'm gonna have to work.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
Mm,
um, you're gonna have the cryptic lawyers that in their head it makes sense what they want, but they can't quite transcribe that into the comment bubbles on documents. Or if they can transcribe the documents, it's handwritten and their writing's illegible, and then you've got to call their assistant and figure that out, which I did once, and then she went to the partner, and then the partner got back to me, and that was just a whole embarrassing situation. But
Hmm.
that's awesome. That is so great. I
Yeah.
that's one of my pet peeves is getting a document that somebody else has marked up and they've got comments in the margin that don't ask a question or propose a solution. They just complain about something. And so it's like,
yeah,
what are you asking for? Like, what do I do with
Right.
that? Yeah, that's a
Mine is
frustrating
when
thing. But
they leave a comment for like a situation that could be a red line, like missing period.
guess what
oh
I'm
yeah,
thinking right now and
Oh,
put
I
it in the
will kill
document.
you.
Do my job for me,
Or
please.
like this word
Now
is
that I'm
spelled
like,
wrong.
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah. So, Bill, when you think about, how many lawyers have created as an industry this sort of ongoing, quality of life deficit, if you will, with the I'll call it the mismanagement of time. Maybe it's not. I know it's more nuanced than that. But where the lawyers that are sending you stuff know that you've asked for it already. They know whether or not they're clear because it comes up all the time. It's not new for them that they're not clear on stuff. They know that you've got a deadline on Monday. They know how long it's going to take you to turn something around. And yet they're going to manage their workload and they're going to manage their time and their resources in such a way that they're going to consistently, and I think it's probably fair to say that it's consistently, maybe not most of the time or certainly not all the time, but consistently going to put you in a position where your only option is now I've got to go and tell my spouse, tell my partner, tell my family, tell my social connections, tell my community that I'm, supposed to be serving this weekend. Hey, I'm not going to be available for that. Somebody else is going to have to cover for that. I'm not going to be able to invest in that relationship in that way, because as a result of what somebody else has chosen to do, I now need to work all weekend. Um, uh, I don't know that I have a question in there, but I feel like that's a consistent thing that our industry does, regardless of the level of law, that people are just not respecting other people's time and not respecting their calendars, and that the natural result of that is that we're constantly putting people in a position to fail in the relationships that matter most.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just to comment on that, so my experience is I would say 8 times out of 10 or 4 out of 5, whatever math you want to do, if you want to reduce the fraction.
16 out of 20. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that's on co-counsel's part. It's another firm that loves to, we've got a Monday motions deadline. They love to drop us red lines and commas on a Friday.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the way it is. But the partners understand, my colleague associates understand that we got to get this step done. And if one of us has a prior obligation, the other associates and sometimes partners will just jump in and say, "Hey, we'll handle it."
Uh-huh.
So we definitely have a team mentality, which is really nice. Now, that's not always the case.
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's great. Do you feel like that's something that, because I feel like that sort of so those two trends, the one where the industry continues to create those kind of pain points for people, do you feel like you see that? Have you seen that improve? Are people managing time better, being more respectful throughout the course of your career? Or do you feel like it's about the same as it was when you started?
It's certainly improving, and I will say that
Great.
I am even to the point in my practice where I'm getting so busy where I've got to prioritize
Mm-hmm.
things, and I'm even guilty of giving somebody
Sure.
something at the last minute just because I thought I was going to have time for it, but then I
Mm-hmm.
don't have time for it, and I'm got to toss it over to the junior associate to finish up. But it's certainly improving. I mean, I can tell you just
Good.
from as simple as the younger partners reviewing scheduling orders, making sure there's no Monday or Friday deadlines for big motion, no big
That's
motion
interesting.
practice deadlines, no big deposition designation deadlines, which is the bane of my existence. But it's improving, I'd say.
No, that's great to hear. That's
Yeah,
great to
I
hear.
think it's like a top-down sort of thing, right? The relationship manager has to be the one that says and be willing to set those types of boundaries that says we're not going to put deadlines on a Monday for expert disclosures because I know that means we're working all weekend. I mean, I think it's interesting that some of it is that it's partner driven and that like, nope, we're not going to agree to those types of deadlines because I know how that will tax my team. And as someone who does the same thing, when I'm looking at deadlines and setting those types of things, it's important to be like, nope, that's not going to work because I know what it's going to do or what it's going to tax the people that are going to be responsible for getting this work done. Does it feel? I have two questions, and then we'll let you go. I keep saying that, but does it feel
We're lawyers. We're not known for our accounting skills. Go on.
long term? Tell me like what it feels like sustainability wise for you. So you're in a season of your life where you have the time to have a relationship that's thriving, personal relationships that thrive, because I happen to know who your friends are and they're amazing and you have great friends. I
Except
think
Jen
you just
Hackman,
I was gonna say I think you just got one of
hi
our mutual
Jen.
friends married. So you have really strong, beautiful friendships. It sounds like you have a great personal, romantic relationship, right? That's what you were. Yes. And then you have this community relationships or involvement that's going beautifully while also being sort of killing it at working hard and being out of town for 3 weeks at a time and staying up all night getting things done. What does that look like for you when you look into your future? I mean, whether it's you get 4 more dogs or you decide I'm going to have a family or whatever that looks like. How does that sort of work in your brain? Like, what do you tell yourself in these moments where you're spread thin?
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten really good at the skill of forecasting my own schedule,
Okay.
and figuring out when the busy times are, when the busy times aren't. Am I
Okay.
always right? No. But I'm able to put in contingency plans, um, and figure out how to navigate personal, volunteer, and workload. But I should have started with this at the beginning, is that I'm a person that just enjoys being busy all the time, which may
Hmm.
not be for everybody. I know it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
So otherwise, if I'm slow, my millennial anxiety starts to spike, and I'm just like, I'm
Uh-huh.
doing with
Like I
my
have no value.
I have no
yeah.
idea what that's like.
Me neither. Not relatable at all. Um,
That's unique to you, Bill. Yeah.
yeah,
I figured.
you're on an island there.
Yeah.
But also such a good point because
Mm.
again, that model works for some people and we want to highlight that it works for some people for a variety of reasons, but if it doesn't work for everyone, is that problematic? Is it, do we need to make adjustments so it fits? What does that look like, when we talk about better law? So the final question that we always ask our guests as we work through this podcast, and Sam asks it way more eloquently than I ever have. So I'll probably like garble through it and then be like, Sam, did I say that right? But we like to just get insight from the people we talk to about if there's one thing that you would contribute to the idea of better law, what it would be like to practice better law for lawyers, or people who support lawyers or whatever. What would that be? What is one thing that you would say, if I could contribute this idea or this concept to the idea of better law? What would it be?
I would, and it's cliche, but it's so uh, necessary, but it's not always practiced. Is in associate, at least in big law life, in associate mentor program. There's always um, the partner associate mentoring programs, but really, I mean, this is like free press for Mary, but Mary was my informal mentor when I first started at Shook, and she was able to give me all the keys to the back channels of how to get certain things done. And there's the one thing that my firm fell a little short on was training about the inner workings of the firm, and like something as simple as like submitting a receipt for reimbursement, which professional staff is in charge of what systems and platforms are helpful for certain litigation, and Mary really helped walk me through that. And I think that's something that is absolutely necessary for junior associates and even lateral associates.
Yeah. Yeah, like the sort of the not the practice law side, but like, here's how you practice law here, and reduce the anxiety of not knowing how to do those sort of entry level tasks that you just don't learn how to do everywhere.
Right. And yeah, a piece of advice I would give to your listeners who may be in law school and are looking to maybe go into big law, the salary is great, but you have to work your butt off, and you've got to do um, you have you have to do a lot of the groundwork yourself. If you don't have that mentoring, you've got to ask questions. Otherwise, you can sink very quickly, and
Yeah.
it's difficult to recover from that.
Mm.
Yeah.
So it's the paycheck is great, but it's not all about the paycheck. And big law is certainly not meant for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Bill, thank you so much for joining us today. We're just, really excited to hear more about your story. I think it's such an important one. I hope that as our listeners think about making our industry better and having, their own great experience in law, whatever form that looks like, I think one of my biggest takeaways is that you knew what you wanted. You figured out where to go get it, and you built relationships with the people around you that really helped you to thrive. Not just survive, but to really thrive. And I think that those are commendable things. I think so many people in our industry have such a hard time with each one of those things. And so kudos to you for doing that. And I know that you're investing in the younger attorneys at your firm to help them do the same kind of thing. And that's what makes our industry a place that delivers better law to the people inside of law firms and the people that receive our services. So thank you again, Bill, for joining us. Thank you to our listeners for checking out this podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. We sure enjoyed having you here. And we'll look forward to chatting with you all next time.